afternoon, students. So, for today's discussion, again, we are going to discuss the item analysis. And so, I prepared here slides or PowerPoint presentations for you to understand and to cope up with the discussion today. So, again, we are talking about item analysis. This is a process of determining the plausibility of alternatives, difficulty index, and discrimination index. So, in plausibility of alternatives, we are going to determine kung nakakapanglito or may kakayahan bang piliin yung isang options in a test paper or in a test exams. So, in difficulty index naman, we are trying to determine the difficulty level of an item, while discrimination index is about the goodness or poorness of an test or of a test item. So, okay, we have the plausibility of alternatives. Again, pag sinabing plausibility of alternatives, kakayahan na piliin. So, in alternatives are commonly the choices from which the examinees choose their response. So, we have the alternatives. Ito yung mga choices na meron tayo sa isang test. And the correct alternative is what we call response, and the wrong ones or yung mga maling sagot na pagpipilian lang or option lang is just distractor or decoys. So, next we have the alternative should be plausible, strength or power to be chosen as a response. Okay? Sabi ko nga, yung may kakayahan na piliin para maging response or akala nila yun yung tamang sagot. So, we have the steps in knowing the plausibility of an item. So, first thing that you have to do is to tally students' responses in a table for analysis of the plausibility of alternatives. And second, put an indicator of the correct answer for every item. You can choose whatever you want it to be. You can use asterisk, you can encircle the correct answer, you can make a line for that correct answer, or babuyin mo yung sagot na tama, basta bahala ka kung matatandaan mo yung tamang sagot. So, in number 3, you have to find the difference of the upper group and the lower group. And next is, the fourth one is for the correct answer to be plausible, the difference must be positive. And for the distractor or decoys, the difference must be negative. Again, in order for it to be plausible, for the correct answer or the response, the difference must be positive. Okay? And for the decoys or distractors, it should be negative para maging plausible. So, for example 1 or example, we have, there are 50 students who take the test. So, A, B, C, and D are what we call alternatives. Alternatives or options lang lahat yan. But, so, knowing that our alternatives has two types, yung tamang sagot, which is the decoy, which is the response rather, and yung A, B, C dyan, or yung mga maling sagot, is what we call decoys or distractors. But we have the upper group and the lower group, yung UG and LG. In order for us to know if it's the upper group or lower group, we have to multiply it by the 27%. Okay? The 27% is constant, hindi po nagbabago. Yun po yung way para makuha yung number of students in the upper group and the lower group. For example, there are 50 students. So you can use your calculator in order for you to find the 27%. Okay? So you have to multiply 50 times 27%. Okay, so the answer is 13.5, but then there are no students such as 0.5, so you have to round off in nearest whole number. Okay, 13.5 yung lalabas kapag kinuha mo yung 27%. So, kasi nga 13.5, so meaning to say you have to round off. Kaya siya naging 14. Okay. So you have 14 from the upper group and 14 to the lower group. Okay po, yung number of students in the upper group and lower group may vary depending on the number of students who take the exam. Diba? So, the upper group na tinatawag, these are the students who is who got the highest scores from the test, and the lower LG or lower group is those students who get the lowest scores. Okay? So, the rest, yung 46% na estudyante na nasa middle nung upper group and lower group, hindi natin sila papakialaman. So, meron lang tayong pake dun sa upper group and lower group. So, since we have upper group and lower group, and in our example, there are 3 students who answered letter A from the upper group and 2 from the lower group. In letter B, there are 3 from the upper group and 2 from the lower group. In our letter C, there are 3 from the upper group and 4 from the lower group. And in our response, there are 5 students who answered from the upper group, and in our lower group naman ay 6. So since we have the table for our upper group and the lower group, so we have to find their difference, which is 3 minus 2, the answer is 1. The interpretation is not plausible. Why is it not plausible? Because letter A is one of the distractors, and for you to be plausible kapag distractor ka, again, dapat negative yung difference. So in our case, in distractor letter A, the difference is positive. That's why it is not plausible. Same with letter B, because they have the same number of students who answered from the upper group and the lower group, which is 3 minus 2, which is 1, also a positive. That's why it is not plausible. So, in our letter C, 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Okay? Letter C is a distractor, or letter C is a distractor, and it has a negative difference, meaning to say it is plausible. Bakit plausible? Kasi nga po negative yung difference niya. So, in our letter D naman, which is our response, there are 5 minus 6. The answer is negative 1. But, it is not plausible. Why is it not plausible? It is because the difference is negative. Okay? Is there negative 1 din naman yung nasa letter C? This is the case. Our letter D is the response, meaning to say it is the correct answer. For it to be plausible, it is or it should be positive. But in our case, it is negative, so that's why it is not plausible. Okay, let's have an example in item number 2. Again, A, B, C, and D is all alternatives. But pag sinabi na natin what is the decoy, what is the distractor, it is not the correct answer. Meaning to say yung A, B, and D on that particular example is what we call distractor. And yung letter C natin, which is the correct answer or the response, is yung may sandyaan na asterisk. Okay? Again, we have same data from upper group and lower group. So in our distractor A, there are 3 students who answered from the upper group and 4 from the lower group. In our letter B, there are 1 students from the upper group and 2 in the lower group. In our response or the letter C, we have 7 students who get the correct answer from the upper group and 1 from the lower group. And in our distractor D, there are 3 students from the upper group and 7 from the lower group. So again, we have set of data. We have to find the difference. So in our letter A, 3 minus 4 is negative 1. Okay, it is negative and it is a distractor, meaning to say it is plausible. Kasi nga po negative. Okay, in letter B, 1 minus 2, we have negative 1. Again, it is plausible because it is a distractor and it has a negative difference. So in our response, letter C, we have 7 minus 1, 6, positive 6, or it is plausible because positive and it is the response. And for our letter D, 3 minus 7, the answer is negative 4, and it is plausible because it is negative and it was a distractor. Okay, so here are the steps for item analysis. So first is check the test papers and indicate the score, indicate the correct answers or response. So we as a teacher, ito yung mga steps in item analysis. We have to check the test paper first bago tayo makapaggawa ng isang item analysis. And second is after you check the test paper, we have to arrange the test papers from highest to lowest. Bakit kailangan siyang i-arrange from highest to lowest? Because it is made easy for us teachers to know the students from the upper group and from the lower group. So, so we have number 3, count the number of students who took the test. Bilangin lang natin kung ilan ba yung nag-test na bata or estudyante. And number 4, compute the upper 27% and the lower 27%. Okay, again, in order for us to get the 27% of those test takers, we have to multiply it by 27%. Okay, in the table, number 5, in the table for the difficulty and discrimination indices, enter the number of students who get the correct in the upper and the lower group. Unlike in plausibility of alternatives, sinusulat natin sa bawat choices yung mga sumagot from A to B, C, at nalalaman natin yung sino mga nagkamali from the upper and the lower, and sino lang yung nakakuha ng tamang sagot. Here in item analysis or in the discrimination and difficulty indices, we only need those students who got the correct answer. Wala tayong pake kung sino nagkamali doon sa upper group and from the lower group. Okay, step number 6. We have to compute the difficulty index by adding the correct in upper and lower, divided by 54% of the total number of students. So difficulty index is equals to upper group or students who get the correct answer from the upper group plus students who get the correct answer from the lower group divided by 54% of n or the number of students who take the test. So after you compute the difficulty index, we have the step 7 to compute the discriminating index by subtracting the number of students in the lower group who got the correct answer in the item from the number of students in the upper group divided by 27% of the total number of students. So here we have discrimination index is equals to UG minus LG, which is students who get the correct answer divided by the 27% of number of students. So after we compute the difficulty index and the discrimination index, and lastly, we have to interpret and formulate a decision. Okay, we have difficulty index. So, again, explain ko na, si difficulty index is to determine the level of difficulty of a test item. Gaano ba kahirap yung isang test item? So, the formula is UG plus LG divided by 54% of N. Wherein UG students, you get the correct answer in the upper group. LG students, you get the correct answer from the lower group. And N is the number of students who take the test. Okay, here is the level of difficulty of an item that is being used in an interpretation. So we have 0.00 to 0.20. It is very difficult. And 0.21 to 0.40 is difficult. And 0.41 to 0.60 is average. And 0.61 and 0 to 0.80 is easy. And lastly, 0.81 to 1.00 is very easy. That is the level of interpretations of the difficulty index. Okay, next we have discrimination index. Again, discrimination index is to determine the goodness or poorness of a test item. So, here we have discrimination index is equals to is equals to upper group minus lower group divided by 27% of number of students who take the test item. Wherein UG is students who get the correct answer from the upper group, LG is students who get the correct answer from the lower group, and the N is the number of test takers or the number of students who take the test. Okay, 27%. Okay, level of discrimination of an item, we have negative 1.00 to 0.20, or the below 0.20 is what we call poor item, and to be rejected or improved by version. And we have 0.21 to 0.30 is what we call marginal, usually needing and being subject to improvement. And we have 0.31 to 0.40, reasonably good item but possibly subject to improvement. So, etong 0.31 to 0.40 is a good item. And next, and lastly, 0.41 to 1.00 is very good item. So, yung pinakamadaling item. Okay? We have to know that only items with average difficulty index are considered good. Items that are very easy and very difficult are automatically rejected. However, difficulty index alone is not the basis for rejecting or retaining an item. So, meanwhile, for discrimination index, we have only items with good discriminating power are considered retained. These are from marginal to very good item. So, ito yung mga kapag kinumpute mo, lalabas na computation should be from 0.21 to 1.00. Those are discrimination index that has discriminating power or good discriminating power. So, okay, we have here making a decision in item analysis. So, you could see the difficulty index interpretation, discrimination index interpretation, and the decision. If your interpretation from the difficulty index is average, and its partner with discrimination index is from marginal, good, or very good, then the item should be retained. Okay? But if it is easy or difficult and it has a discriminating power or discrimination index of marginal, good, very good, then you have to revise the test item. But if you have average and poor, then you have to reject. Difficult, very difficult, easy, very easy, with poor discrimination power or poor discriminating power, you have to reject the item. As long as may partner na poor, i-reject na agad. So let's have an example. Example, there are 40 students who take the exam in statistics. Make a presentation. So, first thing na alam na natin dyan is there are 40 students, which is our N. Okay, N is equals to 40%. So, in our solution, in number 1, we have to compute the upper group 27% and the lower group 27%, which is 40 times 27% is 10.8. Again, there is no such students that is 0.8. So, we have to round off to the nearest whole number. Okay, so that's why it is 11. So, meaning to say, the upper group, our upper group is 11 and the students from the lower group is 11 as well. Okay, we have example here. Prepare a table for difficulty indices and discrimination indices. So, we have the item number 1. Okay, yung upper group is 11, the lower group is 11. We have difficulty index, interpretation, discrimination index, interpretation, and then the decision. So, in item number 1, there are 10 students from the upper group who get the correct answer. So, you have and 8 students who get the correct answer from the lower group. So, you have to use the formula being given, such as students who get the correct answer from the upper group, which is 10, okay, which is 10, plus students who get the correct answer from the lower group, which is 8, divided by, or we have 18, divided by the 54% of the test takers, which is 22. Okay, when you divide it, 22, the answer is 0.81, 81, 81, or round off to the nearest hundreds or round off to 2 decimal places, the answer is 0.82. We know that 0.22 is under very easy with a range of 0.81 to 1.00. Okay, the interpretation for that is very easy. So next, in order for us to get the discrimination index, we have the formula of upper group, or students who get the correct answer from the upper group, minus the students who get the correct answer from the lower group, which is 8. 10 minus 8, the answer is 2, divided by 27% of the test takers, or simply in our example we have 11. So the answer is 0.18. Okay, round up na po yun, 0.18. And its interpretation is poor. Why poor? Because in our interpretation matrix, okay, so yung index na to, yung below 0.20 are poor. Okay? And again, if it's very easy and it has the combination of poor, then your decision is reject. Okay? You have to reject the item. So let's proceed with the item number 2. There is 10 students from the upper group who get the correct answer, and there is 1 student from the lower group who get the correct answer. 10 plus 1 is 11. Okay? 11 divided by 22 is equals to 0.5 or 0.50. Okay? And 0.50 is belong to the average group. Okay? Or average interpretation. And next, we have to compute the discrimination index. Again, it is the subtraction of the upper group and the lower group, which is 10 minus 1 is equals to 9. 9 divided by 11. So we have 9 divided by 11 is equals to 0.82, which is a very good item. So we have average from the difficulty index, and we have a very good item in the discrimination index. That is means of retain. The number for that should be retained. And next we have item number 3. You have 1 and 0. So 1 plus 0 is 1 divided by 54%, which is 22. Then 1 divided by 22, the answer is 0.05, which means in our interpretation it is very difficult. Okay? Next, for discrimination index, we have 1 minus 0 is 1 divided by 11. The answer is 0.09, which means poor. And the decision that is come up for reject because it is poor and very difficult. Okay, next we have in item number 4, we have 5 students from the upper group who got the correct answer, and in lower group there is 11 students who get the correct answer. So add those two. 5 plus 11 is equals to 16 divided by 22, which is the 54% of the population of our test takers, which means 0.73. Okay? 0.73 kasi nga 16 divided by 22. Okay, and 0.73 is interpreted, or its interpretation is easy. While in discrimination index, we have to subtract 5 minus 11, that is negative 6, divided by 11, or the 27% of the test takers or the population. Next, so a negative 6 divided 11 is equals to negative 0.55, which means poor. Kasi nga, below 0.20 is equals to poor interpretation. And our combination for that is easy and poor. That's why it is reject. Okay, that's all for our discussion for today. For you, para mas mabilis mo matandaan, ito lang yan. You should know when to retain, fix, review, or reject something. Kapag alam mong sobrang hirap na, and it's not good for you, then reject mo na yan, best. Okay? Kapag nahihirapan ka na at hindi pa maayos para sa'yo, i-reject mo na. Kapag alam mo namang madali o minsan mahirap, pero nasa tama, ugod pa siya, maayos o mapifix pa yan, mare-revise pa yan, maniwala ka. Kapag walang kasiguraduhan kung okay, minsan madali, minsan mahirap, pero tama naman or good, mare-revise pa yun, mapifix. And lastly, kapag naman sakto at nasa good condition ka, hayaan mo siyang magstay or ma-retain. Okay, remain lang siya doon kahit anong mangyari. Basta nasa good condition and sakto lang, average. Okay, that's all for today. This is Sir JP. I hope that you learned in this discussion vlog. And ayun lang guys. Thank you and God bless.